Okay, cool. So to start off with, for someone who has never seen your art before, how would you describe it?
I'd describe my art as being multi-layered, high-detailed stencils with very, very clean lines. It's something that I kind of developed to kind of distinguish myself from other street artists and other stencil artists that are maybe using a lower amount of stencils and maybe a bit more rugged overspray. I kind of use my art and my stencil to create a clean, nice, crisp image.
What was your...
I had a good upbringing. School was a little bit more difficult as I was diagnosed as being severely dyslexic. So it was a lot tougher at school than it was home life. I had a great home life. But yeah, I was kind of dealing with being severely dyslexic and not really knowing that I had a creative output when I was at a younger age. And when you're exposed to these kind of things once you get to high school, you kind of see that you're looking at creative opinions and options different ways than other kids, and you just kind of look at it and you kind of find that you might have a little bit of advantage that other children might not have because of your dyslexia. And it's just something that you have to build and build and build on, something you really have to work on, because I wouldn't describe myself as one of these artists that's just naturally talented that can draw and create anything. It's something that I kind of had to work on, but I had a kind of creative mindset and a vision that I felt like other people didn't have around me. So it was a lot harder, where I had to work very hard to be academically on the same level as others, which I really never got to. But I found myself just immersing myself in a creative environment where I found myself in a level playing field as others, and then building on it and creating something where I felt like I was actually ahead of others for the first time.
What's your sort of first memory of art then?
My first memory of art, got me there. Yeah, I'd say my first memory of an exhibition, of seeing serious art, was when I saw a Rembrandt exhibition at the National Gallery. It was an exhibition where he created, I think, over his period of his life, created maybe 18 self-portraits, and it started from him being very young all the way through to being an old man. And that was something that it was the first serious exhibition I went to. Obviously, my first memory of art would have been as a child, drawing around and creating stuff. But my first real memory of seeing a serious exhibition was when I saw Rembrandt, and it was the whole exhibition was built around a technique called chiaroscuro, and it's where it looks dark on one side of the face to the other, and you could see him develop this style all the way through his life. And it's something that when I got back into art, it's something I had to go at, and I had to go at that when I created Nelson Mandela portrait. But that's my first real impact of an exhibition on myself.
In that sort of way, it's about light and dark, right?
Yeah.
Do you feel like that also helped with development in the future for you, especially with using things like stencils, because you layer upon layer, right?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, I kind of had to develop an eye for building up layers. You can quite easily, going from dark to light, you can quite easily get it wrong by taking a step too high quickly, from one shade to another. And it can stand out too much, or you can not spread enough, and you've spent all this time creating this detailed stencil, and you've not put enough on it, and you've lost all these little cuts that you've created. Or you can put it on too much, and it just looks like the shades standing out too much. So getting from light to dark is very important. From a can of spray paint, when you're putting a layer on, you can maybe get 3 different shades off the one can, where you can spray it lightly, you can spray it medium, and then you can spray it full. So you can really off one shade of can, you can probably get 3 or 4 different colours from it. So that's also something I see when in younger stencil artists that are building up. They can cut really good stencils, but I can see that they haven't learnt the process of using colour from light to dark yet. And it's something you can only get over time. Literally, you spray check. If it's not enough, bit more. If too much, go back and put a bit more of the colour on. It's something you just have to learn over time.
That's really cool. That's
Yeah.
something I've considered as well. I was going to ask about your dyslexia, but you've already touched on that. So, what was UCA like for you?
Yeah, UCA was like I flipped between both campuses, from the Canterbury and the Rochester one, where I was originally. Well, I'd done a foundation course, and it gave me a bit of a taste of everything. And I had lots of different callings throughout the foundation course. Like the fashion teacher wanted me to get involved in that. Sculpture was there, which I ended up going on photography. I enjoyed it all, and I found like a real niche, like something that I had in each one of them. Like I could have gone and done each one of them. I really enjoyed architecture, but I was put off by the 7 years, and at the time it was like it seemed like it was heavily reliant on mathematics, and there wasn't so much computer-based AutoCAD stuff at the time, and it was you having to learn your own maths, and being dyslexic, it was something that scared me a little bit. So like I was put off architecture from that, but I then went into like model making, which is like I went in it based upon the idea that I could still get a part of architecture into my life, which I love. So it was like model making the buildings that be building skyscrapers or town planning and stuff like that, and you had to get things millimetre perfectly. So I found myself really good at that. But I could see the new techniques they were teaching us was all built around computer-based AutoCAD, so it wasn't stuff that anymore that you weren't getting all these materials together and creating buildings and being really creative. It was something you was designing on a computer, and then you were getting it laser cut, and then you're just sticking it together. And I could tell already, like with like digital design, people might not be even having models made anymore, like now that you can just go through a 3D screen and walk around it and stuff like that. So I could see that the industry was going to struggle like in time to come. So I kind of knocked that on the head, came back into fine art, and that's where I got back into sculpture, which I'd say is what I'm probably considered myself my best attribute. And I'd done a fine art degree in sculpture. I then ended up coming back into art once I left UCA, and I kind of like knew that I wanted to paint and be expressive, but at the same time kind of use my hands a little bit on creative things, which then stencils came along, and it was kind of like you're creating a piece of sculpture while you're creating a stencil and then painting through it, so you're getting kind of both, like being creative with your hands and like creating something and creating a painting at the same time. It's like two different sources coming together to create something. So my time at UCA was very, very beneficial, and I kind of felt like it set me up in the circumstances where, like, if you get a bit of criticism about my artwork, like it goes straight over the top of my head, whereas like you're sitting in a class and you kind of justify what you've painted, and people critique it, like it kind of like gives you a good like hard shell. Whereas some other artists that maybe haven't gone through the art process of like art schools and that, like when there's first bit of criticism, they can take it very harshly, and it's something I'd say that is very important, like, and something I gained from there, where somebody can criticise my work, and like I can look at it like productively and like, well, maybe they're right, but I don't take it personally.
How was sort of the exam process at art school with dyslexia? Was that hard?
No, it's not. It's like most of it's based around the coursework. It's like there's a dissertation at the end, but and there's like a couple of essays throughout the year, but is the majority of it's like literally like what you're creating. So I think it's probably something that I found myself like steered towards that way, because I knew that I was going to have to rely less upon my literal skills than anything else. So I think it's probably steered me that way.
What sort of thing do you hope that others take when they look at your art from it?
I like to inspire, and you might see in some of my art where like it's Van Gogh or it's Magritte or it's a lot of the past masters. It's the art that I love. Like it's what's inspired me to get into art in the first place. So I've created paintings around these guys like a lot of times because I feel like a young generation might not be inspired by their work generally if they just looked at it like off the cut and like it in a museum, but like if they see that I've painted it and I'm inspired by it, like and it's graffiti and street art's been inspired by this art in the past, it's like something, oh like I really like that piece of graffiti, like what's inspired it. They go back and it's almost like I'm introducing them to these artists that I love. So like that's something I really enjoy about like where I use my inspiration from.
What sort of things are your current inspirations for your work?
At the moment, I'm just like I'm trying to kind of like gauge a technique where I can merge something at the moment. Like I'm playing around with a lot of different things, and I'm just trying to create something where like I can use my high level detailed stencils, but I can kind of bring it away from like being so street art and kind of get something like maybe abstracty contemporary involved in it. So I'm going to be using a lot of different backgrounds and techniques and different backgrounds, but still getting my high level detailed stencils on top of it, which is something that I have to like be very wary of because a lot of the time when you can create these like abstracty backgrounds, like the background become very rough and like jagged and like not smooth. Where I paint on smooth canvases at the moment, you can lose a lot of my detail where like I could be using a palette knife and the oil paint sticks up and then I'm trying to put the stencil on top of it and spray through it, then it's not sitting on the canvas properly. So I'm very much in a learning process at the moment. Like but I do plan to create something new.
I wanted to ask about artists that inspired you growing up. And I heard that your mum's from Derry and you were inspired by an artist.
Yeah, I was inspired by a collective which is called the Bogside Artists. I was at UCA and I was doing a project that was very open and you could really go down whatever avenue you wanted to on that, and I just happened to be going back to Derry to visit family, and I was looking for inspiration. I'd always seen the murals and I found them absolutely fascinating. It was the first time I looked at them a different way, and I kind of found their studio. I hunted them down, saw them, and I asked if I could come back and interview them for an essay that I was writing. So basically I went back the next day. I sat there with a camera and interviewed him for like 2-3 hours straight. It basically turned into just more of a chat. But yeah, it really sparked an inspiration about mural art and street art. And at the time I was doing sculpture, and I think it's probably the first time I kind of like stepped over that boundary and back into like painting and being inspired by being painters. At the same time, we spoke a lot. We spoke about Banksy and how I'd kind of seen and noticed that Banksy had been inspired by them, and they were taken back because they'd hardly ever found that like that somebody else had seen that connection between them. There's a image of their most famous image is a little boy throwing a petrol bomb in the middle of the Troubles, and Banksy's got a little girl and it's the little girl that's got the bottle of flowers, and he's basically taken the exact image from the Bogside artist and turned it and been inspired by it. It looks like he's been inspired by it and he's twisted it around. You can see there's a little badge there that's like an all-island badge, and he's turned it into a Disney badge, but like the images are just too similar. It's something that I've researched it all over the line. Nobody else has made the connection between them, but I made the connection between the two of them, and they were like, "Oh, you're the first person that's just seen that." They said they met him, and like we just got chatting, and it was something that really inspired me. Like the Troubles was something that my mum was in, and like the murals are depicting, so it really like felt like it kind of hit home on that level as well. At the time, like people weren't really painting like 2-3 story buildings like they are now. Like at the time, it was one of the biggest murals going. You know, it's only 2 stories, maybe 3 stories tops. And at the time, it was a massive mural. Like, you know, standing back, how did somebody paint something that big? And now people paint the tower blocks. But at the time, that was like really, really out there. You look at it now, and it's not as detailed as some of the street arts that are around at the moment. And I've gone back and looked at it and looked at it in different ways and gone, I remember this being like even sharper and cleaner than it was the first time I saw it. And because you've seen so much art now that's really sharp and clean, maybe it's not like to that level now, but like they would just do it with paintbrushes, like literally tins of paintbrushes up and down. So like, I'm sure that if those guys there that were painting in like in the 80s and 90s were painting now, they'd probably be using, you know, spray paint cans, and it would probably paint the same thing, but it would probably look a little bit different. But like, as far as inspiration goes, like I think they're real pioneers. I think most street artists, if they come back and look at where it all began, they're right there at the start of it. And I would advise anybody to go over there, and it's a part of it's just at the lower end of the bog side, and like it's called the People's Gallery, and the space of like maybe 300-400 metres. I think it's 11 or 12 murals.
You said that their pieces often tell a story. Is there a particular one that catches your attention the most?
No, but there's a lot of them. They're very sad, a lot of the stories behind the murals. A lot of them, there's Bernadette Devlin, who was like she was a woman who was very at the front end of the process and like the people's fight. That's like that one's I admire very highly. There's like they've painted Nelson Mandela, like incorporated with love, with others. I'd probably say the one that I spoke about before, the little boy with the petrol bomb, is the one. It's I wouldn't say like they've tracked him down now, the little boy, and like the original photo and everything, and they've had like an image of him standing next to it. But it's just the imagery of that one. Then like a lot of them memorial posters, or like there's where the British Army are smashing down doors. Like it relates to a lot of people in Derry, that one probably, because you know they were sitting in their living rooms and not knowing what their sons or brothers or anything have been up to. So like in that part of like Derry, like I'm pretty sure at the back of any family's head, like when you don't know what your boys are doing, and anybody's door's could come through at any point. So I'm sure that probably gave people a bit of anxiety.
Yeah, do you feel like that's such a powerful point of street art, is that so many have sort of like socio-political meanings behind them?
Yeah, it's something like I feel like street artists can have a platform to kind of like, without using lots of words or getting into arguments or like writing essays, you can kind of say everything you need to say in one image. And it's kind of like street artists kind of have a platform, a stage to, if they feel that way and something really feels that important to you, like you've got a stage that nobody else has got, so you can go out there and use it. And I feel like that's something that I've done, like where how I felt about maybe the environment and global warming and climate change, like, and sometimes it's just something like you maybe you're watching a documentary, you read something, it's just like, right, that's it. I'm going to go create something because I can have what I just felt, I can possibly get others to feel.
That's something I found really inspiring about the first sort of piece that kind of went viral for you was the Santa isn't real, right? And I just, it was because it was by a school.
Yeah.
Is that why you felt
yeah.
you needed to change it? Yeah,
it was like literally the first time I'd done a piece of street art, and it was something that I'd seen for like maybe. Sorry, it's not blinking. probably better if you ask that question again and I'll go.
Yeah, go again. So, in relation to having a platform to make sort of a change, you did a piece of work that first went viral, and it was you covered up something, but you didn't cover it up, but you enhanced it, in my opinion.
Yeah. Yeah, it's something that I'd seen, had been up on the wall for like maybe a good 5 or 6 years, and it was maybe 100 metres away from a primary school, and it was just something I could never do anything about it before because I didn't have any skills. I'd started painting smaller scales, small canvas boards, and I got to the point where I actually got to the point in March, and I thought, right, I need to do something about that, but there's no point doing it at the moment because I'm so far away from Christmas that like it's not going to have any kind of like relative facts, like it's not going to link in. So I kind of bided myself for like months and months and months and months, but I hadn't, right, I'm dealing with it, I'm finally dealing with it. And it was just something that like parents and anybody that was in care of like any kind of child like was thanking me, just because I guess like the amount of questions they probably had to deal with that on a daily, it was just something that like I thought, right, I'm going to take that out of their hands. But yeah, it was just something that it was a piece of street art. There was not street art, it was a piece of, I wouldn't even call it graffiti, it was a bit of vandalism that was there that read Santa isn't real. So I just went and painted Santa up there with a paintbrush and it taken NT out, so it read Santa is real, and he was standing next to it from before it, so it was a big goblin face saying Santa isn't real. And that was like kind of that created a spark where it's the first time I painted something at full scale, and I was like, it was difficult because it was the first time I'd done it and I made so many mistakes. I painted it, didn't get it completely right, there was no light, so I painted it and nobody really saw it, and I didn't say anything about it. I left it the whole day and I went back the next night to fix what I'd painted that I saw in the daytime. So I was just lucky that nobody like took photos of it that first morning, because that would have really got viral. The belt was all in the wrong place, and my first time doing it, and there was no light. But when I went back and the next night, painted the belt in the right place, took a photo, stuck it up online, and then it was just went viral. Like there was news sources in Brazil and sharing it all over the place.
So in relation to that again, so you then had to pick a name, and you chose the name Catman because obviously you know what you've done was illegal. Do you feel like this was, in my opinion, this was kind of like a kindness that you did to change that for parents and kids? In some ways, do you feel like a bit of a vigilante?
I did at the time, yeah. I like the name Catman just came from like I kind of got caught cold with some of the news sources that got in contact with me, and Catman was a nickname that my friends already called me. So it was just something that they caught me reprinting this in the paper. The guy there that was editing it already knew me from playing football with me, so he got in contact and says, "So what's your artist name?" And just if I'd have thought about it for a day, I would have probably come up with something different. But I was there on the spot, and it was just bang. It was Catman, and it just stuck. At the beginning, I didn't really like it. I was like, I really should have, had something more like out there, or urban or something. But as it's gone on, like it's something where people hear it, like it sticks. It's not something we forget. Like where you can have like some artists that have one word names or something edgy urban or whatever like that. It just like you can get mixed up or forget it quite easily. But like Catman is like kind of, it sticks because it sounds like I'm a superhero that's out there like creating these things at night, and I think that's what kids because I get a lot of schools get contact with me and ask me to do like questionnaires, and I know that a lot of kids are like interested in my art. I think that maybe it's the name and I'm going out at night time and nobody knows it, and the artwork appears. It probably like sparks children's interest as well.
It's really cool. In response to you said, about criticism earlier, going to art school makes that easier for you. Is there any piece of criticism you've been given or that you find either the worst piece of criticism or the funniest, in your opinion? No, not really. Like you just get some like,
I say maybe like really. I probably reckon most stencil artists probably get the exact same criticism like from graffiti artists that are like, or maybe like just taggers, like people that are just freehanding things, like some a lot of the time they see like maybe a stencil artist selling things and making a living out of it. Like it does become a little bit like like anybody can cut a stencil or whatever. Like, but it's not as easy as that. Like anybody could probably just cut a one layer stencil. Like I could teach anybody to cut like a one layer stencil or a cat or whatever like that. But it's not like really just cutting stencils. It's the concept of coming up with an idea, like and coming up with something creative that like people don't really look beyond that when they just see a stencil and it's straight away stencil. Like you get those, and like I think every single stencil artist deals with that. And after you heard it so many times, it's just over the top of the head. But like a lot of it's the same stuff.
So your piece, The Unusual Suspects, was produced into a music video for King Ziggy.
Yeah.
What was that experience like?
Yeah, like that was one of my good friends, Rye. He's a really, really talented musician. And we kind of like, we just wanted to kind of create something together. We're both creative people. I was going out to all his gigs. He was interested in whatever I was doing, and there was just something that came together at the right time that I needed that piece documenting. And I created it as like a time lapse as well, but we also created it and turned it into a music video. And it was like at the time I didn't even, I was just creating a piece of artwork. I wasn't really thinking about the music video because I didn't do anything differently. I just had somebody document it and edit it down. But for having like a collaboration between music and like street art, it felt like something special. Like it really did. I've only had that once before, where I was in Florence and I was painting a piece for. She's a musician, and it was an enormous house, and I was painting The Usual Suspects again. I was painting full scale in one of her rooms. In an adjoining room, she had her grand piano, and she just kind of started. You have to pay to go and watch her. She's like a big star in like China and Italy, and you literally pay to go and watch this woman. Like, she's the most amazing pianist. And I was in one room creating an artwork and left the doors open, and she just got on the grand piano and like she was just playing while I was painting, and that kind of felt like a real life collaboration at the time. It was I didn't expect.
Do you feel like art is every form, so music, theatre, painting? Do you feel like you draw like a parallel between all creative?
It's like, just anything that's creative, like, is a form of art as far as I'm concerned. And it seems like new forms of art are being born all the time, like constantly, like things are evolving, and whatever is like a creative process with a creative outcome, you can class as a form of art as far as I'm concerned.
So in relation specifically to this piece you've done for us today, which artists who, if they would have lived now, which ones do you think would have been street artists?
Van Gogh, without a doubt, he would have been a street artist. He'd have been a crazy street artist. He'd have probably been like up scaffolding, just holding on, like with no health and safety whatsoever. But yeah, Van Gogh, I think, would have been a street artist. Dali, I think, would have been a street artist. Maybe not Warhol, because he could have done that kind of thing at that time anyway, because there were people doing it. But he had a part to play in what like street art has ended up being now, because you can see a lot of his I would say like pop art and his like paintings and even like prints. You can see the process of like stencilism within them anyway. So like I think you could kind of say that some of the stuff that I've done has been evolved from the way he put his stuff together. But Dali, Picasso, he painted massive scale canvases anyway, and like some of the stuff that Picasso painted on the scale that he did would have easily been like massive mural wall art. I think just because of like them being around in that certain point in time where it being surrealism, like cubism. I feel like if that a lot of the street artists now, if they were 100 years, 50 years ago, they would have probably been in the middle of those movements rather than this movement we have at the moment. I feel like it's just what's there. That if they were here now, they would possibly be street artists, yeah.
So out of curiosity, so in your piece, The Usual Suspect, you have Haring and Basquet pictured. And I was curious, considering we sell a lot of Richard Hamilton's,
Yeah.
why he isn't featured, considering
Yeah, he could have well been, but I think it was just like I had 5, and the original lineup from the movie is 5 people, and like I would have possibly, if it wasn't for like me trying to mirror what the if I weren't trying to mirror what the actual image of the movie was, I would have probably had a female in there. Frida would have probably been in there. Like I could have gone very different ways. Van Gogh should have probably been in there, but it just felt like, as far as what I was inspired by, with those 5 there. But you're right, you could easily put him in, and Frida and.
Can I specifically ask why Haring and Basquet? Because often this is something that I'm asking specifically.
Yeah.
Because this is something I discuss a lot.
Yeah.
It's about how they are a lot more famous than Hamilton was.
Yeah, I think it's like I think it's, for my behalf, it's just by inspiration. Like when I've been to New York and I've chased around and found as much of it as possible, like a lot of those artists could easily be in a lineup, but I literally just chose like who I was inspired by. But you're right, like I think it's just the art market. The art market can pick and choose who they want to who they want to make massive, and it just happens to be that like maybe those 2 got picked over him at this point here. But like further down the line, when they decide to like, and people gather them and decide to make a lot of money, like it might well be worth getting hold of one of his now, because the art market could easily decide just to blow him up. Yeah. Because you take it 20 years ago, Basquiat was like, I don't know what you would have got for Basquiat, but like it seems like it's only in the last 15 years that like I don't know who all got together and said, right, let's make a lot of money out of Basquiat. And it could be you could choose numerous artists that could be the next one that they decide to do that too.
So, what was the first piece that you ever did? Do you remember what it was? The first piece of art?
No, it would have just been at like at school. Like it would have been. I remember the first piece of art that I was like proud of. Like was like oil pastel, and it was like we was kind of doing. I'd say it was kind of impressionism. I'd say we was using pastels, and like we were painting like very floral, lily based kind of art. But that was the first kind of thing that I at school I thought, and looking around, I think I might be like one of the 2-3 best of creating the picture. Like it was a boost of self-confidence. But yeah, it was just like, it was an oil pastel, and it was just something very like, yeah, impressionism based, like lily based kind of image.
So where does the creation process start for you?
Like it's hard because sometimes you can get a block, like mentally, like I'm sure it's the same thing that writers get, and like, but sometimes your brain's just alive and active and sparking, and you can't keep up with all these ideas, and like you've got to write that down, otherwise it's gone. I had one the other day. Well, that's a great idea. I need to write that down. I didn't write it down, and for the last 3 or 4 days I've been trying to remember what it was. It wasn't actually it wasn't actually a design. It was a process. But I thought, that's something that I don't think anybody's produced art like that before. Use stencils, but I was doing it will come to me. Like I just need to keep doing what I was doing last week, and then it will happen again. But yeah, it starts with an idea, and then it's like the idea. Then like you're trying to visualize something in your head, then it's getting it down like creatively, and then it's creating a stencil from there, and then painting from there. But yeah, it all starts with a spark. It can start with just seeing something, like walking along the street, you can see something, I think that looks a little bit like that, or that looks really interesting. How could I use that in its own environment? But it can happen at any point. And like sometimes the brain is more active than others. I'm not really sure what that's about. Maybe like you can feed that with like your energy around you, like with exercise, food, or whatever, and get your brain in a more active environment. But like I haven't found any wrong reason to it.
So street art is often illegal. So I find it really interesting to find that an illegal piece you painted, the council then asked you to repaint it. Does that feel like a massive success to you?
Yeah, and I was very close to getting caught the first time I painted that. First time I painted that piece, I was going back and forth between where I was keeping the stencils at my parents' house and all the paint, and it was probably the second piece of street art I'd ever done, and I really didn't. I was still making all kinds of mistakes. Things had taken so much longer than they should do. So I was left the stencils back home. So I was going back, getting them, coming back, spraying them, getting them, coming back. I was making too much noise, putting security lights on and all kinds of things. But I didn't find out that in between myself going back and getting more stencils and more paint, the police had arrived, and it was on British Rail Transport property, and they're notoriously very strict. And they turned up in the middle of me painting it when I wasn't there, probably 3-4 layers in, looking at it thinking, I don't really know what this is at this point. And they've gone, nobody's here. They drove off again. And I must have walked back down the alley and carried on painting. So I was very close to getting caught the second time I painted. And I only found that out because I was painting a year or so later, and I had permission, but it was overnight. And so the police called me, and they came down and said, I've got permission, this is what I was doing. They said, we turned up in the middle of the painting up there, did you do that? And I said, no, that wasn't nothing to do with me. But I wouldn't have found out about it unless the same police turned up to arrest me the second time where I had permission. But when I got that piece up, like it just... locally it just took off, and like people could really relate to it, and over time it weared and teared, and it was on a very old wall that was maybe over 100 years old that had never had anything on it, so it wear and teared, and then somebody sprayed something on it, and the council in the end just painted straight over the top of it, but eventually the council came back in and said, look, do you mind painting that back on? I said, look, that's British Rail Transport property, and you've got to get the okay, because if I get caught, you're not going to be able to help me out on this unless you get the go ahead. So yeah, it all got done, and everyone's happy.
That's really cool. So have you ever been caught?
No, never been caught. That was the closest I had, was the time where they turned up in the middle of it and I wasn't there.
And Nathan was the opposite. Nathan was like, I've been arrested in every country.
Yeah, he's too blatant. He's so blatant.
He really is. So how would you recommend, if you're a young street artist and you feel the need to start putting your name out there, how would you recommend young street artists to find spots that are obviously they're most likely going to be illegal?
Yeah.
But what is kind of the go ahead?
I would say the best thing to do is find a wall that's not gonna.
Sorry, 1 second. Alright.
This will start at the beginning.
Go ahead.
I would say the best thing they could possibly do is find a wall that's not going to aggravate anybody, and use it to hone the techniques and like speed, and just kind of get it could be a wall in somebody's back garden, it's just something to practice on before you go out there and start really painting. I didn't really do that, and I was making all kinds of mistakes like I said, the first 2-3 pieces, like I was making tons of mistakes, maybe 3 times longer than I was to paint a piece now. And I would say, like, if you can avoid that, and there's like boards in your back garden or walls in a friend's back garden or something like that, like just use it to like really hone your technique before you go out onto the street. Because once you go out to the street, like, it's a completely different, like, you're on edge, full stop. Like once you've completed the piece and you're walking away, like, you're going to caught. There's a complete buzz that you get that you don't get from like having permission to do it. But like you're a lot likely to get caught if you haven't like got all those mistakes out of your system and like got the speed up and the technique up. So I'd say that before you go out and paint on the street, the easiest thing to do is practice first.
So you've spoken about how there's beauty in a lot of the street art. Has there ever been a piece that you have gotten attached to that's gone?
No, I would say, like the usual suspects that I painted in London on Portobello Road. I'd say it lasted longer than I expected it to last. Like I nursed it through a bit, like when it had anti-graffiti paint over it, and you know I nursed it through a bit. But every Notting Hill Carnival, it would get absolutely smashed. To the point where I was going up with big cardboard boxes and boxing up the whole of the mural to protect it. But in the end, I was just like, you know what, like it's not going to stay there forever. Like it got ruined, and then another street artist painted on top of it, and like it's like a cycle of like being an art gallery. Like you don't want the same one piece of art in an art gallery for like 3-4 years, do you? Like that's a sole piece. You kind of needs to change, and I felt like I got a good run out of it. But like I felt like that's like probably the piece that like I had the best feedback from, which is gone, and I had a great time painting it. Like, but it got a good run out. It got a good run out, and like it was the time to let it go.
So what is the World Stencil Art Prize?
Oh, I don't think it exists anymore. Actually, no. It was an art prize in Australia, and it was stencil artists from all over the world entered the Stencil Art Prize, World Stencil Art Prize at the time, and then a judge would pick the pieces that got thrown out to Australia, and then there would be a sole winner. I think I got into it maybe twice, maybe 3 times, definitely twice. But yeah, like I've never felt like it had my best work, like the work that I've done recently. If I was doing back then, like I would send and think, oh, I might have a shot, like, but I was just learning at the time, and like it was like a good 10 years ago, and I was just like chuffed to be involved in it and like exhibiting in Australia, and it was like a step for me at the time, and I kind of like feel like now if it's still run 1 year, if it was still there, I'd sit down and I'd think, right, I'm going to give myself a month and I'm going to create the best piece I can possibly create and have one real crack at this, don't try and win it. But it doesn't seem to be running at the moment. I don't know if it's going to come back in the future, but it doesn't seem to be something out there that rivals it at the moment. But
maybe we should just start a new one.
yeah, it should, yeah. And I did see I saw street artists enter it, big street artists enter it under, I could tell it was them, under different names and different personas, because they were scared of putting their reputation as persona out there and not winning it.
Yeah.
So they were putting art in on it and entering it, but under different names, because they were scared that if they put it in and didn't win, they didn't look good on them.
Did they win?
No, they didn't win. No.
You did the right thing.
Yeah.
So what does being anonymous mean to you?
I'm not one for the limelight, to be honest. Like personally, like I'm not one of these people that are going to walk around and like want everybody to come up in the street and stop to me and chat to me, and like even if they're chatting to me very kindly and give me compliments, I just prefer to go under the radar. To be fair, like I'm not socially on the level where like I want all the recognition, or I want that I prefer my art to do the talking, which I think it does. Like well, not at the moment, because I'm talking, but literally like I'd rather like people talk about my art than myself. It is strange though, because like I love reading and watching documentaries of like past artists and finding out their stories and like what inspired them and their childhood and their upbringing and all of these things. And like I kind of like I've got to a certain point where I need to start telling my story, letting people in a bit more of myself, because it's what I love about the artists I look up to. So I'm trying to do that now, but like I can do it behind a mask and not have to chat to like everybody that wants. Like sometimes I just want to go out down the pub or something like that. I just want to like chat to my friends or my wife, but like not necessarily like everyone. As much as like I appreciate all the nice comments.
So what's next for you?
Like experimenting. Like I said, like I feel like I've got all these tools that I've been experimenting with, and I feel like over the next year or so, I'm going to try and put a style together that's very distinct, that nobody has really done before, and it might be using some oil paints in there as well, and the very clean nature of some of my stencils. I feel like I'm going to collaborate it with something, but I just need a bit of time to sit down and maybe a month or two and just really experiment. Basically, I can do that with some of my old stencils and some of the ideas that I've got in my head, and collaborate with some of my old stencils just to see how things work. But I feel like I need to just start developing something very distinctive. That's the plan.
And finally, do you have any questions that you have never been asked that you would like to be asked?
I don't think so. I think you've covered you've covered tons of the stuff that was like I'm pleased to be asked about. Yeah.
Cool,
Well, good.
If you enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe and click the bell notification. Thank you.
Yeah, no, I was really pleased with that. Yeah, I think that would be really good content.
Yeah, no, really cool. Thank you so much.